Good morning, everybody. I'm Larry Jacobs. This is PreK 12 Education Talk Radio, and it's the first day of February 2024. So happy February, everybody. Happy Valentine's Day. Happy Washington's birthday and Lincoln's birthday. Remember those? Now it's just President's Day. Hey, welcome to today's show. Okay, we'll be celebrating all that and having great shows all through February here at Education Talk Radio, which is the voice of the American Consortium for Equity in Education. That's over at ace-ed.org. And everything we do is over there. Our magazine, which is an online journal called Equity and Access. You're welcome to go over there and read it. All our podcasts are over there, as well as a ton of incredible information about what's going on in the wacky and wild world of equity in Pre-K 12. And today on our show, this is a show that I called NAESP, the National Association of Elementary School Principals, to create. And we're going to be talking about principal leadership for the very early grades. And on that note, we were supposed to have two guests. I've only got one called in, but we were supposed to have Kim Taylor, who is from Dedham, Massachusetts. She hasn't called in. Hope nothing came up and she's okay. But today we do have Julie Bloss, and Julie is from Grove, Oklahoma, where she works. She is advising to part of the NAESP Center for Early Learning Leadership. She's a fellow there, okay, and she's also a retired early learning principal, again, from Grove, Oklahoma. So let me say good morning to Julie. Hi, Julie.
Good morning. It is so great to visit with you this morning, and happy February. I'm so thrilled that it's February. January is just always the longest, darkest month, and it is gorgeous here on Grand Lake this morning. It's almost 50 degrees, and the sun is shining.
Well, we've got, let's see, I live in Maine. All right, so we're completely snow-covered. It's about 25 degrees, and it is getting to be a sunny day. And that, to us, is a good thing. It's nice to have a little bit of sun up here. Okay, and I'm so glad the weather is good down there. Where in Oklahoma are you?
I am almost an hour and a half from Tulsa. If you're familiar with the pioneer woman, Ree Drummond, she lives in the middle of nowhere, and I'd say I'm about an hour and 45 minutes further from nowhere than she is. So I'm in a rural community that's located on a large lake. We're a tourism-based community where people come to vacation and enjoy life on the lake.
And is that Grove, Oklahoma?
Yes, it is. Yes, it is.
Oh, I have that note here. That's cool. So to get there, we leave Tulsa, go to nowhere, and make a right, and we'll get there. We'll get to Grove.
Exactly. But once you get here, you won't want to leave. We have a beautiful shoreline of lake and lots of different things you can do here: fishing, skiing, boating, just a lot of beautiful scenery. And the Bassmaster tournament is held here frequently, so it's a great place to visit. Mm-hmm.
Wow, that's huge. The Bassmaster tournament, which is not guitar, by the way, everybody. It's fish. Okay, it's not bass.
That's exactly
it's bass.
right. Yes.
Thank you.
Yes.
Yeah. I had a friend of mine who ordered the magazine Bassmaster, but he played bass guitar. He thought it was a guitar magazine. I literally have. Okay. I kid you not. So I'll make the distinction for everybody. It's great to have you here. I think you are retired. How long did you teach? Or principal?
I was in education for 34 years. 20 of one of those were as an early childhood elementary school principal. I retired in May and became a fellow of early learning with NAESP, and now I currently work for a university advising interns that are in the field of education.
Oh, that's wonderful. What university are you working at?
I'm with Northeastern State University out of Tahlequah, Oklahoma.
Excellent, and I bet they turn out great people. And we have to change that term. In this day and age, we have to change the word, and I've been saying this for a while, fellow, because it's a masculine term, and a lot of the women I talk to are fellows of such and such. What do you think of that?
I hadn't even given it a thought.
There you go. I mean, it's congratulations. To be a fellow is really cool. But
it's a real honor to do the work, and I've been under advisement with NAESP. They supported me as an assistant principal and principal for such a long time to be able to work with the Center of Early Learning. It's just a real honor.
And I'm so glad they honored you, Mademoiselle Fellow, if I may. Okay? Madam Fellow, if I may. And where was this, the school you taught at? And this has struck me as interesting. You were an early learning principal. Was the school a public, I'm sure it was, a public early learning school? What grades? What was that set up like?
Yes. So I began as an assistant principal in a school that was pre-K through third. And then my school was built, it's public school in Grove, and it was specifically for pre-K and kindergarten. We passed a bond issue, and all of the pre-K and kindergarten children in my community came to that school, which is not always the case. You see neighborhood schools, all kinds of different makeups of schools, but in my small community, all of the pre-K and kindergartners came to my school. That's
really neat. And how old were the youngest kids, if I may ask?
The youngest children that came to my school were 3. Wow. And most of them, when they exited, they were 6 or possibly turning 7.
Oh, they must have been so comfortable there. That's such a nice experience for them. Okay. And what I have to ask you, was it difficult to find to staff the school, to find the right teachers, et cetera?
At times, in the past handful of years, there has been a national shortage of teachers, but luckily I was very fortunate to find great quality teachers and also support personnel. It takes everybody in an early learning facility, especially because in Oklahoma there are laws that when you have 4-year-olds, when you have 20 4-year-olds in a classroom, you have to have 2 adults. You have to have a certified teacher and an assistant. So I was really fortunate to find quality people.
Well, Oklahoma has impressed me, and Grove has certainly impressed me with their forward thinking about pre-K. I mean, and to take kids as young as 3-year-olds, it's so helpful to the kids. It's so helpful to the community. It's so helpful to the parents. I mean, I think that's just wonderful. I congratulate you on being there and being I assume, the founding principal of this. What was the name of it?
I was. It's a Grove Early Childhood Center, and luckily in Oklahoma, we are fortunate that pre-K is universal, meaning that pre-K is free to families in Oklahoma schools. If public schools want to have that program, it is actually funded through the State Department of Education. That's not the case in all states. So
it is not the case in all states. You're absolutely right.
But in Oklahoma, it is, and it has been that way for quite a long time.
Okay, and that's again, I'll say it again. I congratulate Oklahoma for being forward thinking about that and making sure. And I'm going to ask you, these are softball questions I want to ask you, but I want to hear it from you. Okay, I always say how important pre-K is, and I don't think there's any educator in the world who would argue with that. And my standing anecdote, my metaphor is that, you lay a good foundation, you have a better house. Okay? It's that simple. All right? So as you look on this and what you've learned from all this and what you hear as again, a fellow, if I may, from the NAESP's Center for Early Learning Leadership. All right? How important is it these days? And I think these days it's more important than ever. Okay, what are your thoughts on that? Why is it so important to focus on young learners? And you must have talked to your colleagues in the regular elementary school. Okay, you talk to people in the junior high school, the middle school. Okay, they see the results of this. Talk about what you've experienced with that. Why it's so important. Why they were so dependent on you.
Right, absolutely, and you're exactly right. It is the foundation, and so. Over the years, standards and expectations have definitely, the rigor has grown. And so we always look at that and we talk about what used to be first grade is now kindergarten, what used to be kindergarten is now pre-K. Right. And there's so much of an expectation. Right. And so it's a trickle-down effect I always met with my kindergarten teachers. Kindergarten teachers talk to first graders, and you want to know, well, what do you need to know by the end of the year? What do you need to know going into the next grade? And so it's really important that pre-K is the foundation of a public school, of a private school, of a charter school. What do those students need? Well, they need to love school. They need to love learning.
What a great sentence. What a great sentence. Go ahead. Keep going. That's a wonderful way to put it. Keep going.
And so that I really thought was the key when we built our school was on the front of the building. When you drive by, it's still there. We embedded it into the rock of the wall. It says, happy memories begin here.
Well,
if your children love school, if they want to be in school, then academics will come. But really the point of pre-K is help everyone begin school, be comfortable in school, learn the sense of school, and then the academics will come. And it certainly is. It's an academic place. You want students to learn academics, but you want them to learn all of those social skills. You want them to learn school, how to do school, because children come from various backgrounds. Some have been to daycare, some have been to church, some have been around other children. My child didn't do any of that. My child went, we had a friend who watched him until he was old enough to go to school. And then when he came to school, the learning was a lot. There was a lot of learning to do. So, they come with various skills. Some children come with unidentified needs. Some come with language that needs to be worked on. There are all kinds of skills that need to be learned. So you bring them all, you put them in classrooms, and 1, 2, 3, go. It's go time.
Right. And I'm going to tell you something. By the way, Kim just joined us. I'm going to bring her on in 1 second. Okay, but I got to tell you something. What you just said is so important. All right, if you learn to school, if you engage the kids, if they learn to have happy memories, the academics will follow. It's that much easier. And you just put that in such a beautifully way that one of the great purposes, and all of the shows I've done about pre-K, nobody's ever put it that way. That's where kids learn to love school. That's where they begin to start to learn to love learning. And that was very nicely and sweetly put. I got to tell you that, Julie. Okay, you just nailed it. Okay, you just nailed it.
Thank
okay,
you.
And let me.
Thank you.
You really did. Okay, Kim, are you there?
I am here. Good morning.
Good morning. I'm Larry Jacobs, and I don't know if you know Julie, but go say hello to your pal Julie if you want to. Okay. Okay.
Good morning, Julie.
Good morning, Kim. I'm so glad you're here.
There you go.
Thank you.
Yeah, I'm glad you're here too, Miss Dedham, Massachusetts. I'm up here in Maine and New England as well, so it's great to talk to you. And Kim also is a fellow. I don't know how women become fellows, but they do. We're going to talk about that. I keep harping on that. Okay, she's a fellow. Okay, we got to change that term for NAESP's Center for Early Learning Leadership. These are principals. Okay, and they deal with early learners, and there's things principals have to know about this. Kim is right now you're the principal of Curran Early Childhood Center in Dedham, right?
That is correct.
Just south of Boston, by the way, everybody, and it looks like Dead Ham, but it's Dedham, just for you non-New Englanders. All right, and just tell us about Curran before we go let's start right there. Just brag a little about your school, Kim.
Sure, great. Thank you for having me this morning. The Curran Early Childhood Center is a standalone building in the public school system of Dedham, Massachusetts. We have approximately 350 students here, preschoolers and kindergartners. So we are learning with 3-, 4-, and 5-year-olds every day, and approximately 75 staff members who are just gifts to the early childhood field. They are an amazing group of educators who work with students who have are typically developing, but we also have our preschool program, which is an integrated program. So we do service students with special needs, all types of special needs.
Nice.
Yeah. And we have 12 kindergarten classes and 7 preschool classes here. Wow. So about 250 kindergartners and about 100 or so, give or take, preschoolers.
I think that is terrific. And I'll ask you, I want to ask just the same questions. Kim, this day and age, how about, are you having any trouble or problem staffing? Okay,
yes.
Especially with special ed, it's very difficult these days. So I want to talk about that because we need people to understand the value and importance of learning how to work in pre-K. But just talk about what you're going through with that.
Sure.
You can put out a one ad. You can do a one ad if you want. I guess.
I would say that our classroom teachers and our therapists and those types of positions are full. And with people who are working in those positions are very specialized. Our preschool teachers have to be duly certified, which means they have to have an early childhood license and a special education license. So they are very specialized, and our therapists, our speech and language pathologists, occupational therapists, physical therapists, those staff members are also specially licensed. So we are lucky to have those positions filled, and so the challenge becomes when we are trying to find support staff. Yeah. Paraprofessionals, as we call them here. Some school districts call them support, educational support personnel. It's all different, but those are the roles, and quite frankly, are one of the most important roles in our building because they support the classroom teachers in order to be able to support the students, and those positions are consistently open. And
I want to say this: those positions are important. They need higher pay to draw the right people in there. I got to say that right off the bat. That's everywhere, not just
you are
Massachusetts.
Absolutely correct.
That's everywhere.
Right, exactly. So, last year in the district, for example, we had all year long 10 positions that never went filled.
Wow.
So 10 positions.
It's a burden on everybody else. It's a burden on everybody else. Yes.
Exactly.
Wow. It's just brutal out there. And actually, I want to ask you both, but let me I want to follow up before I do that on what Julie said. And you heard me when I brought you on, Kim. Julie said that, and I love this, that pre-K is where kids start to learn to love school. And if we can do that there, we're kind of on our way for a better experience later for the kids and the teachers. What's your thoughts on that incredible comment? It should be the name of your next book, Julie, or the name of your book. Okay, it's great.
We're the foundation. A prior superintendent here considered the early childhood years as the gateway to opportunity for students in school. And I really feel like that is absolutely, what we should always be keeping in mind. Like, we need, as Julie said, for kids to love to learn, and we need to teach them how to learn. It's, learning to learn here and learning to be.
Yeah. I mean, it's just,
go ahead.
It's fascinating the way you two. So let me ask you this. You were both trained, and I'm not sure of this. I'm going to just say it, and you can argue. Julie, I'll go back to you. Were you trained as an elementary school principal or a early learning principal? Julie?
My master's is in early childhood, so yes.
And
I was
how about
trained
at the beginning?
specifically in early childhood.
And at the beginning when you first got to your undergrad?
My undergrad is in elementary ed.
Yeah, so, okay. But when you go into leadership, was an early learning. What about you, Kim?
My undergrad is in early learning.
Wow,
my master's degree, my master's degree is in curriculum instruction pre-K to 8. And my certification, which required leadership training, I have an additional certification. It was not a degree program, but it was a training program, and it was a pre-K to, my license in Massachusetts for administration is pre-K to 6.
So my question is, you guys work with NAESP, and NAESP, my good friends of ours, National Association of Elementary School Principals. Really, you're responsible in many cases. NAESP covers the gamut from age 3 for a kid. This is amazing. To 8th grade. It can go through 8th grade. You have a lot of principals, middle schools who are also involved in NAESP. All right? And a lot of times we put a principal, the principal's job could be K-8 in this area or pre-K-8. All right? And my question to you is, what do you need to know? When you're at the Center for Early Learning Leadership at NAESP, what are the tricks of the trade to becoming a good pre-K leader? And I would think one of them, and I'm just going for this, is that a lot of people still look at pre-K as the stepchild of K-12. Okay, and and it's not it's so equally important. It's beyond belief. It's probably more important. Okay, so talk to me. What is a? And I'll start with Kim. Go back to Julie. But Kim, what does a pre-K principal need to know? What's the sweet spot? The tricks of the trade?
I think the first thing that comes to my mind is around developmentally appropriate practice. What is the right thing to do for students that are 3, 4, and 5 years old? They're not little 8th graders. They're not little 6th graders. They're granted, some of the behaviors might be similar, but I think one of the struggles that we always have, and I think Julie would agree, and we've talked about this before, is that over time, practice in schools has become, we're constantly up against this developmentally appropriate practice. Like, are we actually asking kids to do things that their brains are not ready to do? And constantly advocating for curriculum, activities, events, things that meet the needs of where children are in their development, as opposed to the state says we have these standards. And, keeping that at the forefront would be my first thing that any early learning leader needs to always be in mind and be advocating for along the way.
To me, it's so amazing. And, the challenge, of course, and this is always with public education, I'm going to go to Julie in a second, is that public education is run by school boards. School boards are mostly lay people. They are good, well-meaning people, don't misunderstand, but they are lay people. They are not educators for a lot of people, okay? And we got to make everybody understand that, again, pre-K needs to be even more so part of the full program. Julie, what's your thoughts? What's a sweet spot? What does a early learning principal need to know that they might not be taught in school or whatever the case may be? What did you learn? Yeah. Go ahead, Julie.
Piggybacking off of Kim, I remember this great book that I read, and it seems like such a simple idea, but if you think about it in this term, it just kind of, it makes it clear. But the book is Kids Deserve It, and it hones in on this: do what's best for kids, do what's best for students. So if all of your decisions are based upon what's best for your students, not what's best for parents, what's best for the adults, what's best for the teaching staff, but if you do what's best for your students, then you're going to be fine. You're going to do what's best.
And it's a simple concept. Yeah, keep going.
Right,
please.
It's a simple concept, but if you have disagreements with your school board, or if you're not in alignment with policymakers, and you need to have those difficult conversations or those challenging conversations, you bring it back to that. I understand, blah, 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 but is that what's best for our students?
Exactly.
And then you talk about, like what Kim said, is, developmentally, they're not quite ready for that. Developmentally, that will be really difficult for them. They won't be successful because they're not ready for that. We'll be ready, but we're not ready right now, and that will be a challenge. That will be upsetting. That will be chaos, whatever.
Yeah, yeah.
And so, when I read that book, that was a game changer for me as an elementary school principal. And I read that at an NAESP conference. So my second part would be make sure that as a leader of a school, as a teacher in a school, you belong to an association and you are surrounded by colleagues so that your professional learning continues and that you have the support that you need and that you continue to do good work. Because when you leave the college and you have that degree, that doesn't mean it ends.
Right, and teaching principalships are lonely professions. I hate to say that, but it is true. And what you just said about belonging to a professional association is so important. That's where you don't have to reinvent the wheel every time you think of something. Okay, somebody's already doing it, or they want to hear what you have to say because they got the same challenge. All right, and that's why these associations for networking, for understanding, for creating something like a Center for Early Learning Leadership like NAESP has done is really, really important. Okay, it's just so important. It's incredible. I have to ask both of you this. And Julie just retired in May, right? This is your first year retired, right, Julie?
Yes.
Okay, so So they're going to miss you, Julie, by the way, but that's besides the point. Okay, the pandemic. Okay, across the board. In fact, there was an article today I read in the newspaper, how things are going post-pandemic. And we've been post-pandemic for over, let's say 2 years now, okay, which is good news. I would imagine that the early learners, it has less effect on them, obviously, because they weren't somewhere else prior. This is something new. But talk to me about how we're doing right now, okay, post-pandemic years in early learning. And we'll do that by your own experiences. So Julie, last year, I'll start with you on this one. Julie, how were things last year? Early learning.
You would think that the pandemic wouldn't impact early learners, but it was my experience that they were impacted because those children were in their homes and they didn't experience a lot of social activity outside of their homes. They didn't maybe leave the home for different engaging activities. They weren't going to daycares or church or away from their families. Their communication, in my experience, was coming to school was delayed. We had a lot more students with speech delays, low vocabulary.
Oh, wow.
So that was something that I noticed. Their interaction with other people was impacted by COVID. And also, that also impacted their social emotional learning skills. They didn't play with others. They didn't learn to share, take turns.
Wow.
So we had to spend a lot more time working on those skills, following rules, social norms. Those were two things that I would say were greatly impaired.
Wow. And I think I'm old, okay? And those things that you're talking about, because we had 1 million kids on my street in Philadelphia, okay? We continue to do that. And you think that that's just it. But when those things are removed and you can't play with a lot of people and get all those social skills together, okay, it affects everything, okay? And it affects education, okay? And it's to get your staff to be able to do this. What did you find, Kim? Same thing? Wow.
Yeah, I mean, the things that Julie talked about are things that we are like concerned about. Like, we're always with our littlest learners, like, have social emotional learning at the forefront of what we do. We have to, like you were saying when I hopped on, that you can't do the kids can't learn if they don't feel safe and happy at school.
That's right.
And that has to be the first priority. And what has happened from students who were home during COVID is that those social emotional skills were addressed only in their homes. Like, they didn't have an opportunity to go out and, like, even go to the grocery store and, like, become familiar with, like, part of life, and so we're finding that actually caused a lot of trauma for kids in their development, and we have to kind of look at learning in regards to, trauma is a strong word, but if you think about what we all went through during that time, really, younger kids who did not have the opportunity to come to school and play and, like Julie said, take turns and, like, learn how to be, human beings, which is
That's
what we so much concentrate on.
Well, exactly. We knew, as adults, we know that the pandemic is going to pass and there's a different world out there, okay? Because we've lived through it, experienced it, and we know these things pass and we get back to normal, which, to use the phrase, we have done, okay? But a kid, when they're raised during the pandemic, however a kid is raised, that's their world. Mm-hmm. That's what they think the world is. All right, and all of a sudden, the pandemic leaves us. I hope forever. Okay, like it did. Okay, and now these kids are thrust into a world they don't even know exists, or they've forgotten about it because they're little. A year of a 4-year-old is a quarter of their lives. I hate to tell you, it's not a quarter of my life. Okay, and it's very important. And as leaders, you guys are leaders in this. Okay, you have to walk your teachers through. And on that note, I want to ask, and I'll stick with Kim on this. Kim, you're both talking about basically social emotional skills. Okay, in elementary, in pre-K. Okay, is it 50-50 SEL academic, or would you say the SEL side is more important?
Oh, way more important, because you can't really get to the other stuff without that.
Real interesting, Julie.
Absolutely. The social emotional learning trumps everything.
Wow. I wish we could get all the communities of America to understand that. That's what every educator says. Okay? And it's, so there's political stuff and all this crap going on about, social emotional learning. Went through that last year. Okay? When in reality, all it's doing is helping the kids. Okay? And it's just so important. And so I have to ask, okay, as you work with other principals going into or who are in early learning, okay, are you finding that that's the standard right across the board? Julie, you're a fellow of the Early Learning Leadership Center.
I think so. I think most principals understand that. And, social emotional learning has been called different things throughout the different periods of time. Mr. Rogers did it. Sesame Street did it. It's been called different things, but the concept is still the same.
It is.
And I think that principals understand the value of it and know how important it is.
It's interesting because I think that also, Julie and I come from environments that are specifically focused. Our buildings are specifically focused on early childhood, so it's even more at the forefront. When you go to elementary schools, like we both have elementary colleagues, obviously, in our districts, and they absolutely now are seeing it even more so because the kids, now we're starting to get kids at our level that weren't even alive during the pandemic, so.
Hard to believe, but we're all getting older.
Yeah, and the elementary people are now having the kids that we had, like, that were part of, and they're like, what is going on?
It's unbelievable. It's just wild out there, I got to tell you. And do you think that and I'm just curious about this, as you hire teachers, I'm just going to ask both of you as we wind down here, do you find that your early learning teachers are coming out of school with the skills they need to do a good job? What do you think? I'll go back to Julie on this one. Julie, I know you're retired, but as you were hiring for this year, et cetera, what did you find? Are we doing a good job training new teachers in pre-K?
Yes, I think that colleges are doing a good job because I think that they now more than ever see the need and what teachers need to be prepared for as they leave colleges. And as I told you, coming on, that I'm now working with interns from a local university, and at that particular university, there's an influx actually this semester of interns coming out of the education department, which is a great sign of hope that we have more coming out looking for job opportunities. So I say yes, that they are doing a good job being prepared. in the past couple of years in particular, the interns that were in my building were excellent. They were excellent. And
that's so wonderful to hear. And I got to ask you what Kim brought up before. Are you down in Oklahoma in Grove, as an example? Are you having trouble finding paraprofessionals as well, or is it easier down there? I meant to ask
No,
before.
I think it is challenging. But you know, in a lot of communities such as mine, it's been difficult finding people to work in general. You know, at local establishments such as fast food places, Walmart. You know, there are openings for positions everywhere for all types of work fields. So that's something coming out of the pandemic. I think that I'm not sure what type of phenomenon that is, but we had openings too that were difficult to fill at the public school.
When we got to figure out a way to do this. I wanted to ask you, Kim, before we wind down here, how about when you hire new teachers right now, are the pre-K, are the kids who graduate pre-K and come into you, are they well prepared? How we doing?
Yes, I mean, they are, but would I make a suggestion to the prep programs that teachers in Massachusetts, typically the practicum time in schools is one semester. So practicum, like final year practicum students, are only getting a half of a year of a school year to prepare for, I mean, they're in and out doing observations and things, but I have always felt that my, teachers who are coming to do their student teaching and things would benefit much more from having a full year in an environment that shows them growth of students, from when they come in, and what that development looks like in a preschool or a kindergarten classroom for a full year, as opposed to a lot of them come in the spring. So they don't know what the kids look like in the fall.
That's
so I really, that's one recommendation, that when I retire and I'm working with, university students, one of my recommendations will be, like, these kids need to be in classrooms for full school years. Yep.
Yeah, we got it puts their boots on the ground, and it lets them see what it's really going to be happening. Ladies, thank you so much. You are two really expert educators, principals, leaders, and thank you for working with NAESP, taking on an extra responsibility. You really are, to be a fellow of their early learning leadership. Thank you, Julie, and thank you, Kim. Both of you are wonderful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for having us.
Oh, my pleasure indeed. The audience's pleasure. You brought a lot to the party today. Thank you both. Have a good day. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay. Now, NAESP, I got it linked here, their Center for Early Learning Leadership. And, we talk about that. That's for aspiring principals or principals, et cetera, but it's also for superintendents. You got to know what you need for a person to be an early learning leader. And it's all important stuff, and it matters all the way through K-12, as I've said 10 million times. We'll archive over at ace-ed.org. My name is Larry Jacobs. This is PreK-12 Education Talk Radio. Thanks for listening.